Hello guys. I'll be leaving timestamps in the description for the beginning of when I began talking about each tower, as well as links to the articles that I used for this video. I used the UESP wiki as my source of information. I tried to change things up a bit from the articles, but they're actually pretty well written, and a lot of information, if I'd cut it out or changed it, would have made things make less sense. So it's pretty close to the article. And like I said, the links will be there for reference if you want to read them yourself, or, to just give credit. So I thought this would be a fun topic. So the Towers of Mundus, the towers in the Elder Scrolls are kind of a fun metaphysical topic with quite a bit regarding them. These towers are thought to help reinforce and stabilize Mundus, or the mortal plane. Try to have some caution with it, as any longtime fan of the Elder Scrolls series will know, lore can be a bit murky at times or even entirely contradictory in places. This is because of concepts such as the unreliable narrator, dragon breaks, sometimes just retcons, and also just because of how large the series and lore have become in the last 30 years. Arena was released in 1994. They've had a long time to write stuff. 5 mainline entries to the series, several spin-offs, including mobile games, an MMO, and there have also been several novels. Let's get started. Well, some think that the White Gold Tower and some other towers around Tamriel help, hold the world up, or something like that. Others believe that before the dragon broke, the tower helped protect us from oblivion. They helped keep Mundus, the world, from dissolving back into oblivion, or something like that. Anyway, everyone seems to agree that it has power, but no one knows exactly what kind. It's an excerpt from The Infernal City, attributed to Prince Atrebus Mede. The towers are ancient structures on Nirn that date back as far as the early Dawn era. They are immensely powerful and are thought to be responsible for the stabilization of Mundus, as well as having other fantastical and largely unknown functions. These towers are also capable of causing extreme shifts in reality that can cause dragon breaks. For any who may not know, a dragon break typically results from events occurring that disrupt or break the normal linear continuity of the timeline. The dragon in Dragon Break refers to Akatosh, the dragon god of time. These events are referred to as dragon breaks as they occur when control over time flow has been temporarily broken for Akatosh. The tower split into 8 pieces and time broke. The non-linearity of the Dawn era had returned. Tamriel slept through the disaster, which lasted 1008 years, until the pieces of the tower came to rest on the mortal plane. Every culture on Tamriel remembers the dragon break in some fashion. To most, it is a spiritual anguish that they could not account for. Several texts survive this timeless period, all unsurprisingly conflicting with each other regarding events, people, and regions. Wars are mentioned in some that never happened in another. The sun changes color depending on the witness, and the gods either walk among the mortals or they don't. Even the 1008 years, a number some say arbitrarily chosen by the Elder Council, is an unreliable measure. An excerpt from First Era 1200 to 2208, the Dragon Break. Now, continuing back to the towers of Nirn are magical and physical echoes of Adamantia, which are believed to strengthen and reinforce the structure of Mundus. The towers, plural, relation to the metaphysical tower is not fully understood. An excerpt on Adamantia from Pocket Guide to the Empire, 3rd edition, says, As the world congealed into reality, the gods made a great tower to discuss how best to proceed with the making of Mundus. The physical, temporal, spiritual, and magical elements of Nirn were set at this convention, and the tower itself remained behind even as some of the gods disappeared into Aetherius. Today, it is the Adamantine Tower on the little island of Balfiria between High Rock and Hammerfell in the Iliac Bay. That such a humanoid structure remains the sole footprint of the Aedra speaks perhaps of the essentially mortal nature of our world. The end of the excerpt. The structure of the Arbis is understood as a wheel. The spokes are 8 components of chaos, believed to be referring to the divines and the Aurbis. They are the earth bones of the Aedra who form the earth which the mortals inhabit. They also gave the blending of the primordial forces of Anu and Padme, resulting in time. Outside the spokes of the wheel, at the rim, is Aetherius, or the spirit realm. The spaces between the spokes are Oblivion, the realms of the Daedric princes, and at the center, Mundus acts as the wheel's hub. The tower itself represents an objective view of reality, and those trying to follow Lorkhan's path attempt to achieve this view while maintaining their own sense of agency and personhood. A mortal successful in this endeavor to view the tower while maintaining their individuality may attain Chim. I apologize if I've mispronounced Chim. I've heard some people say Kim and some people say Chim. I usually say Chim. As we know, the Arbis is often depicted as a wheel, and it may be noted that when viewed from the side resembles a tower. At the center of the wheel is Mundus, or Nirn, which is considered the heart of all creation. When viewed from the side, it is revealed this also resembles a tower. This is known as the Secret Tower. The white gold tower, as well as the others, are built to emulate this so-called tower depiction of the Arbis. Mundus is a reflection of the wheel as a whole. Being the hub, mortals living within this hub are able to perceive the tower within Mundus without leaving the wheel. Vivek also wrote of a secret triangular gate of the heart of Lorkhan, through which mortals could perceive the tower. Those with a favorable view of the mortal plane assert that Lorkhan came up with this in order to show others his work. Lorkhan's true motivations have been heavily debated throughout history. Just about all agree his plans failed, but some assert that he failed on purpose, so that others could know how to avoid doing so. The Towers of Nirn. I'll begin here with another excerpt from the Aurbic Enigma 4, the Elden Tree. The spike of adamantia and its zero stone dictated the structure of reality in its Aurbic vicinity, defining for the Earthbones their story or nature within the unfolding of the dragon's time-bound tale. The Aldmeri, or Merethic elves, were singular of purpose only so long as it took them to realize that other towers with their own stones could tell their own stories, each following rules inscribed by Verorium architects, and so the Mer self-reflected, each to their own creation. The Chimer following Redheart, the Bosmer burgeoning Green-Sap, the Altmer erecting crystal-like law, et alia. Moving on from the excerpt, according to legend, when the Aedra undertook the creation of Mundus, the physical flesh of Nirn was hung on a skeleton of joints, which are known as the Earth Bones. Each of them are said to have radiated a palpable reality. The Adamantine Tower was erected for convention on top of one of these joints. During the Merethic era, the Aldmeri devised a way for Verorium architects to inscribe rules for new towers. They self-refracted, with different groups following different towers and stones, resulting in the proliferation of the towers, which are known today, each of them built on another joint point. These legends suggest that while time was linear in the Merethic era, it was not singular. By building their own towers, each group could create their own narrative, distinct but equal to those around it. So the tower each did their own dance, each harnessing their own reality and bending it to their desires. It is speculated that the towers will conform their spheres of reality according to the desires of whomever claims them. A climate shift in Cyrodiil is attributed to this phenomenon. The towers exist apart from ordinary space and time, and each tower for the most part has its own unique appearance and abilities. Some towers are meticulously crafted reflections of adamantia, such as White Gold Tower. Others, like Crystal Like Law, took a more liberal approach to their designs. Some towers are even natural formations, such as Snowthroat. Some are even refutations of adamantia, at least one, the Walk Brass, or Numidium. To such a degree, it apparently refuted itself out of existence. Every tower has its stone, magical and physical echoes of adamantia's zero stone, by which a tower might focus its energy to mold creation. The general rule is thought to be that the stones cultivate creatia indirectly, borrowing surplus creatia, which has washed into oblivion from Aetherius, and then grafting it to the terrestrial domain of the associated tower. Tower lore is notoriously riddled with disagreement and controversy. Much of the lore is thought to be obfuscated by lies and misinterpretation. With some of the basics and general lore laid out, we can now start covering some of what is actually known about each tower. These will be the most well-known towers, but keep in mind that there may be more, and some towers' existences have been more inferred than confirmed. First is Adamantia. The tower on the Isle of Balfiria is known by several names. Tower 0, Adamantine, Adamantia, Direni, and the Ur Tower are a few. This was the site of convention by the Aedra and oldest building in the known world. Legend says that linear time began around this tower, which defined the structure of reality within its vicinity, and spread from there in a stepped fashion. It was this tower which was sought to be emulated across Tamriel. Adamantia's stone is the Zero Stone, which is still within the foundation vault of the tower. It is thought to hold immense power, but despite the best efforts of the greatest mages in history, it has refused to give up its secrets. It was through this stone that the powers of Adamantia at convention determined the spread of creation and their parts in it. Convention largely consisted of two known decisions: the punishment of Lorcan, and the decision of the Et Ada to either leave Mundus or stay. The apex of Adamantia is where Ariel, or Akatosh, is said to have slain Lorcan, impaled his heart on an arrow, and launched it across the world. Even after the Aedra left, Adamantia continued to dictate reality in its vicinity, bringing order to the chaos of the Dawn Era. The facade has been known to change over the years, but the core of the tower has remained entirely unchanged. A single great, seamless, impregnable spire of ageless metal, which is at least half embedded in the ground. It is entirely smooth except for one point, known as the Argent Aperture, which is thought to be a door. Adjacent to the Zero Stone, this door has a lock of 13 slowly counter-rotating rings that has never been opened. The theories I am most familiar with regarding these doors are that these rotating rings may be some sort of timer, with the door set to open at the end of the world or some other ordained time. To my knowledge, this is mainly guesswork though, and no one really knows why the door is locked, when it will open, or what it may be guarding. Next we have the Red Tower. The vast volcano of Tamriel. This giant mountain dominates the north of Morrowind. It is a small continent all to itself, riven from the rest of Morrowind by the remains of a colossal crater. On a clear day, an exceedingly rare event. The peak can be seen from Almalexia, 250 miles to the south. At the time of the Nord conquest, a dwarven kingdom flourished in the north of Morrowind, the region now covered by Vvardenfell volcano. Indeed, this vanished realm gave its name to the mighty volcano that obliterated it. Vvardenfell is a dwarven word meaning City of the Strong Shield. Excerpt from Pocket Guide to the Empire, 1st edition. When the Merithic elves took their own paths, the Chimer followed Redheart. When the heart of Lorkhan fell to the ground in what is now Morrowind, Red Mountain, also known as the Red Tower, rose around it. The second of the towers, whose creation can be directly attributed to the Aedra themselves. Auriel launched the heart of Lorkhan across the world because he could not destroy it. It is the very heart of the world, and it is said that it laughed at Auriel's attempts to destroy it. The Aedra sought to leave the world at convention for its own good, and the raw power of the heart was needed in order to survive in their absence. The Dwemer found the heart buried deep beneath the mountain, and High Craft Lord Kagrenac sought to harness its power to create a mechanical god for his own people. This is where the story of the Walkbrass, or Numidium, begins. Using the achievements of Kagrenac, 4 Chimer eventually tapped into the power of the heart. The Tribunal of Almalexia, Sothasil, and Vivek wielded the divine power of the heart for thousands of years for the benefit of their own people. Their former companion, Dagoth-Ur, awoke beneath the mountain sometime around 2nd Era 882. Dagoth-Ur would eventually succeed in hoarding the power of the heart of Lorkhan for himself, and the Tribunal would lose access to the Stone of Red Mountain entirely. With the fulfillment of the Nerevarine prophecies in 3rd Era 427, Kagrenac's bindings on the heart were destroyed, freeing the heart of the world, and all who had stolen power from it lost their divine spark. Thereafter, the threat posed by Dagoth-Ur was quickly eliminated. Next we have the White Gold Tower. But of all the prismatic Mer, none were more presumptuous than the Ayleids of the Heartland. They built their tower in open emulation of Adamantia, using the founding stone, the great red diamond they had uncovered. Kim El Adabal, said to be crystallized blood from the heart of Lorkhan itself, for the heart on its arrow passed over the Heartlands, birthing one of that post-Nimic's quaternary meanings. Thus did White Gold Tower become one, as all know. As foretold by the Moth-Eyed, Ayleid hubris was to bear bitter fruit. With their vision on high to behold the other worlds, they failed to note the seething Nedlings at their feet, until the thralls rose up and took their tower away from them. Kim El Adabal they took as well, but not before the Archmage Anumeral fangled an 8-fold staff of towers, each segment a semblance of a tower in its dance. And then 7 of these segments were borne by white gold knights to distant fold places where they were hidden. This was all unknown to Pelinal, Essia, be certain, or there might have been a different 8 divines. Excerpt from Aurbic Enigma 4, the Elden Tree. The Ayleids built their white gold tower to reflect Tower 0, Adamantia, or the Adamantine Tower, in the center of Tamriel in order to best echo and even amplify Adamantia's mystical properties. They used the Kim El Adabal as their stone, as it was supposedly the crystallized blood of the heart of Lorkhan, which fell to the ground as the heart passed over the Heartlands. Through their powerful machinations, their tower of white gold became Tower 1, though history states the crystal-like law was constructed first. It has also been simply called the White Tower. The Ayleid's purpose in building this tower was to counteract the spiritual bleeding from Mundus caused by the convention at Adamantia, to make a focus point for reuniting the mortal realm with the divine. To this end, they entered into a pact with the Daedric princes to harvest castaway Creatia from the void. It is noteworthy that the Ayleids built more than just the central tower, also building 8 lesser towers, forming a ring around white gold. The Ayleids had built their own wheel, which gave the white gold tower a power over Creatia unlike any other tower. This special power also made White Gold Tower especially dangerous, for if the Ayleids succeeded in making their own wheel, their own microcosm within a microcosm, then if and when it was meddled with, this could have been utterly disastrous. In First Era 243, the Alessian slave rebellion came to a head, and the armies of Man, led by Orichalc, took the White Gold Tower. Though the Aelids lost their tower, it did not fall. Rather, the legend of Saint Alessia and her new covenant with Akatosh began. It is said that her rebellion was blessed by Akatosh, who looked with pity upon her people. He drew his own blood and blessed Alessia with it, forging their pact. So long as Alessia's generations were true to the dragon blood, Akatosh would endeavor to seal tight the gates of oblivion and deny the armies of Daedra and undead access to their enemies. In remembrance of this covenant, Akatosh gave Alessia and her descendants the Amulet of Kings, whose centerpiece was Kim El Adabal, as well as the dragonfires of the imperial city. So long as the empire maintained its worship of Akatosh and his kin, and so long as Alessia's heirs bore the Amulet of Kings, Akatosh and his divine kin would maintain the barrier protecting the mortal plane from oblivion. Mortals did not always prove capable of maintaining this pact, though. During the interregnum, in the Second Era, the Amulet of Kings had no master, with devastating results for Tamriel. Around Second Era 582, servants of Molag Bal removed many Telvar stones from the tower, weakening it before their prince's attack on Tamriel could be stopped. An age later, servants of a different prince, Mehrunes Dagon, brought about the Oblivion Crisis by slaying the Emperor and any other who they could find who could lay claim to the Amulet of Kings. All that was left was Martin Septon, the slain Emperor's bastard son. As Dagon and his armies rained destruction on the imperial city, in an attempt to prevent his coronation, Martin forged a new pact with the gods, again written in blood, this time his own. He shattered the Amulet of Kings in the Temple of the One, becoming an avatar of Akatosh and casting Mehrunes Dagon back into oblivion. With the Amulet of Kings gone and the last Dragonborn Emperor dead, the gates of oblivion were sealed permanently. And now we move to the Crystal-like Law. When they breached the walls, I fled along with the other cowards. I take no pride in that act. It has haunted my existence ever since, and I burn with shame to admit it. But it is truth. We fled in mindless panic, abandoning those stalwart Altmer who held the line against the onslaught, to preserve and defend our illustrious tower. We raced through cleverly concealed passageways and emerged well away from the chaos that had descended upon the tower. That is when it happened. It started like a gust, rustling through the leaves of a dense forest, but the sound did not taper off. It rose into a roar as the very ground which I stood began to shudder. I turned to look, and the world held its breath. I stood transfixed as the heart of my homeland was torn, as if from my own breast, the unthinkable, the incomprehensible, the tower of crystal-like law cast to the ground with all the dignity of a beggar meeting an ironclad fist. An eternity I watched, trying to reconcile what I saw. Excerpt from The Rising Threat, Volume 1. The Crystal Tower was one of the first towers constructed in emulation of Adamantia, possibly even the very first. The elves of the Somerset Isles sought to focus on Draco Chrysalis, or keeping elder magic bound before it could degenerate into something lesser, when they erected the crystal-like law. This tower was a manifestation of ancient magic, and a powerful symbol for the Altmer people. It protected the Somerset Isles, and connected every reality, by existing in every planar realm at the same time. Sotha Sil believed the tower functioned as a doorway or watchtower, and described it as the key to omnipresence. Somerset's great sages, the Sapiarchs, served as the curators of this tower. The interior of the tower was said to radiate light, and the stone of this tower is called Transparent Law. It is a large red crystal which sits at the top of the tower, and served as its source of power, anchoring it to the other realities. Set within Transparent Law is a smaller gem called the Heart of Transparent Law. If the Heart of Transparent Law were removed, the protection of the tower would slowly weaken. Sometime in the Second Era, a Psijic Rite-Master was compelled to steal the heart, and in Second Era 582, an outsider used the divine power of the Dawnbreaker to reforge it. This tower was the heart of the Altmer homeland, but its physical form in Mundus was destroyed by the Hordes of Oblivion during the Oblivion Crisis. It is believed, though, that this bastion of sorcery has transcended normal conceptions and exists on many planes other than Mundus. And we'll follow that up by moving on to the Snowthroat. This is the highest mountain in Skyrim, and the highest in Tamriel aside from Vardenfell, in Morrowind. The Nords believe men were formed when the sky breathed onto the land. Hence the Song of Return refers not only to Ysgramor's return to Tamriel after the destruction of Sarthal, but to the Nords' return to what they believe was their original homeland. Excerpt from Pocket Guide to the Empire, 1st edition. Snowthroat, or the Snow Tower, is represented in the throat of the world. Its apex is said to only be half there, and its stone is thought to be a cave. Many significant historical and mythical events for the Nord people took place here, including the supposed creation of mankind by Kine at the summit. In the late Merethic era, the Dragon War was ended at the summit of the Throat of the World, where 3 Proto-Nordic warriors used an Elder Scroll to cast the dragon god Alduin forward in time. This resulted in the Time Wound, or Tid Aran, at the peak which the traitor dragon Parthenex guarded in anticipation of Alduin's inevitable return. Eventually, Jurgen Windcaller would come to the summit in the early First Era and build the monastery of High Hrothgar for individuals to contemplate the universe and master their own doom. The prophecy of the Dragonborn mentions several towers, while holding special significance for the Snowthroat. When misrule takes its place at the 8 corners of the world, when the brass tower walks and time is reshaped, when the thrice blessed fail and the red tower trembles, when the Dragonborn ruler loses his throne and the white tower falls, when the Snow Tower lies sundered, kingless, bleeding, the World Eater wakes, and the wheel turns upon the last Dragonborn. This prophecy is shown on the right side of Alduin's wall, in Skyhaven Temple, where the Snow Tower is depicted as a cracked mountain. The reference to the Snow Tower has been widely construed as referring to the plight of Skyrim during the Stormcloak Rebellion, where High King Torygg was killed by Ulfric Stormcloak, causing a bitter civil war to erupt. Soon after, Alduin finally re-emerged from the Time Wound and began rebuilding his dragon army. The Dragonborn would then climb the Throat of the World and learn the Thu'um used by the ancient Atmorans to defeat Alduin. And the next tower is the Green-Sap Tower. I apologize if I mispronounce this word coming up. The Boish elves were of the Earthbones, who most hearkened to Yeffri and his green songs. They did not build a tower, they grew it. A great grot oak, whose roots sprang from a perchance acorn. This was their stone, and because the acorn might perchance have been elsewhere, thus was Green-Sap manifold and several, and each could walk. Therefore each Green-Sap was also every Green-Sap. Within each were told all the stories of the green, with every ending true, so doors therein were not always doors certain. But to this the Boish became Bosmer, became inured, and indeed grew to relish these doors equivocal. For such was their nature, in the schism of the prism. In this way, the Bosmer learned which songs made the trees dance, and which dances they might do. Now, return we must to the 8th segment, or rather segment 1, for Anu Merrill had fangled it in similitude to Tower 1, which itself reflected Tower 0. When the Ayleids fled the Heartlands, they went to all 8 corners of the compass, and this was a chosen thing. Though many corners spelled doom, but more Ayleids fled to Valamwood than to all other directions combined, and this too was chosen. Among these clans went Anu Merrill, wearing segment 1 as a femur, For how but by walking can a spoke advance its hub? Excerpt from Aurbic Enigma 4, The Elden Tree. When arriving in Valenwood with the segment of 1, Anumeral asked the great Cameron to show him the Green-Sap. He was brought by chance to an elden root, where he found a perchance acorn. To this golden nut Anumeral showed the segment of 1, and for the first time ever the green song knew only one ending, so that ending became definite, and the perchance acorn became a definite acorn. That elden tree would never walk again. This tree, also called the first tree, or the great tree, is found in the Elden Grove. Life itself seems to be stronger around it, and this tree is believed to have seeded all of Valenwood. Using dentition as tonal instruments, Anumeral dismantled his bones and built from them a Mundus machine that mirrored Nirn and its planets. When he had used all his substance in fangling this orrery, the orrery of Eldenroot, he placed the segment scepter within, hiding it between the moons. With this magic, he had hoped to convert Green-Sap into white gold, and thereby remake the Ayleid's realm. However, Anumeral's plan went awry for reasons he could not have anticipated. His Ayleid magic was concerned with will, shall, and must, but under Green-Sap, all is perchance. Anumeral's plan did not necessarily fail, as his machinations presumably continue, so while the ending to the story of Green-Sap is determined, that ending still remains a mystery. And now we have the Orichalc Tower. Orichalc is one of the most mysterious of the towers. Little is known beyond its name. Some Redguards venerate Diagna, the Orichalc god of the sideways blade, an avatar of the Hunding, which managed to achieve permanence, and thus entered into the pantheon of the crowns. The stone of Orichalc is said to be a sword. According to a story, Diagna crashed his fist into the Hunding gong, and swords fell from the walls of the Orichalc Tower like needles from a dry pine. It is suspected that Orichalc was located in Yokuda, and may have been related to the left-handed elves. With Yokuda thought to have been largely sunken, Orichalc is believed to have sunk with it. In about 2nd Era 582, while aiding the Sigic Order in restoring the Staff of Towers, the Augur of the Obscure described it as an ugly, sunken, long-forgotten thing, when the Augur found the fragment associated with this tower. It should be noted, however, that the Augur was a notorious liar. And then we have the final tower, the Walk Brass. The Walk Brass, or Brass Tower, also known as the anthropomorphic tower created by the Dwemer, and most commonly referred to as the Numidium, was the Dwemer attempt to create their own god. The book Divine Metaphysics is an explanation of how the Dwemer planned to use Kagranak's tools and the divine tones of the Heart of Lorkhan to do this. It is believed that the Numidium was intended to be used to transcend Nirn. Highcraft Lord Kagranak conceived its construction, which required that Dwemer sacrifice their souls to create its body. With the intention of leading them to transcendence and salvation, this plan was interrupted by Dagoth-Ur's discovery and the subsequent Battle of Red Mountain in about 1st Era 700, wherein all Dwemer on Nirn suddenly disappeared. It is believed that misuse of this tower will have terrible long-term metaphysical consequences, and many believe the Brass Tower to be the most disturbing of all Dwemer works. The Tribunal traded pieces of the Numidium to Tiber Septim as a part of an armistice deal in 2nd Era 896. The Numidium was slowly gathered up and reconstructed afterwards. Though meant to be powered by the Heart of Lorkhan, battle mage Zurin Arctis devised a way to create the Mantella to function as the Numidium's heart. Tiber Septim was then able to conquer all of Tamriel by activating the Numidium and become the first emperor of Tamriel. The Numidium was used again in 3rd Era 417 to bring about the miracle of peace in the Iliac Bay region. Numidium's success inspired Dageth-ur to attempt to create a Kulukan, a second Numidium. But in 3rd Era 427, when the Nerevarine freed the bindings on the heart of Lorkhan, a Kulukan was destroyed. Thank you all very much to anyone who's still watching. I hope you enjoyed the lore. And if you want to look into them, I hope you enjoy the articles and the links too. If you'd like to see me try to do more of this, and you'd like to see me get better in the future, please like and subscribe.